So the biggest thing was, how do I duplicate myself? How do I automate this so that while I'm at work, I can still be able to go ahead and do this? And that's where a CRM really, really helped me out. And that's how I was able to go ahead and understand, how many times I followed up, how many times I did this, and how many times I did that.
So but in the beginning, you were very organized.
Well, and afterwards, I made a lot of mistakes, and the biggest mistakes that I made was, number one, I didn't double down as much, right? Yeah. I should have doubled down more. And that just comes down.
I think we all do that.
Yeah, and that comes back from the scarcity mindset. Having the fear of, wow, I have this amount of money. Yeah. If I lose it all, I'm back at square one, right? So let me just. But the worst thing is that you're going to spend the money anyways, so you might as well spend it on obviously reinvesting. Yeah. Number two was I did the shotgun approach, which I'm pretty sure a lot of us do. I didn't know how I got the deal. I didn't know what list I used. I didn't know what skip tracing provider I used. I didn't know any of that. All I knew
tracking.
Yeah. So that's what a CRM allowed me to do, is that it allowed me to start to understand that over time. Yeah. But I would say like my first 6 to 8 months, I wasn't doing any of that, but I was closing deals.
What's up, guys? So today we have a good friend of mine, Brandon Narain, correct?
Yep.
Brandon's been in the business for almost 7 years now. The guy is a beast when it comes to real estate. He's young but super successful. As a matter of fact, when I started, I actually paid him for a coaching call. So it's kind of cool to have him on. Welcome, Brandon.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much for having me.
Welcome to the show, bro. So I mean, I don't have a lot of context, right? You started about just under 7 years ago.
Yeah.
And I mean, you've been through the ringer. Are you mainly focusing right now on wholesaling? What strategies are focusing on?
Man, honestly, right now what I'm focusing on is buying more properties. Right. The biggest mistake that I made is I lost a lot, millions of dollars in wealth and in equity and in assets because I wholesaled most of everything, the first 5 years.
Yeah. I think we all did.
Yeah, exactly, right. And coming from where we come from, my mom is a Colombian immigrant, and I was raised by a single mom and grandmother. When you make those first big couple checks, you're like, okay, damn, I haven't had this much money. You start to go and look at your bank account, and you do get anxiety. At least I got anxiety from not having a certain amount. And I would look at a check, $40,000 or $400 in rent cash flow. I'll take the $40,000.
Yeah.
So over time, what you're not noticing is that you're really burning yourself in the end, because the average person lives to somewhere around 80, and after 40, you have more past and future. And I was just thinking for right now. So the greatest thing is that through wholesaling, I was able to learn how to actually invest for free. And now I'm going back and trying to buy as much as possible and keep as much as possible. But yeah, currently wholesaling, doing creative deals, fixing and flipping, which I don't like too much, but depending on certain three things that I talk about, which is EOI, TOI, and ROI, which is effort on investment, time on investment, and return on investment. So if all those three things line up for me, then I'll flip it as well.
You'll come in and flip it. What markets are you based out of right now?
So I was in a couple other markets. I was in Texas, Ohio, Detroit, North Carolina, and Orlando, which is my main market. But now I just mostly focus on Orlando because I want to be able to own, obviously in Orlando, since that's where I live. So I've just been wholesaling and focusing on Orlando.
Wholesaling and fixing and flipping as well in Orlando?
Yeah, so I don't do too many fix and flips. Traditionally what I do and what I learned in the pandemic was that and one of the best things, right, is you have to make sure that you're milking your buyers. And what I mean by that is they're out there in the field actually investing, right? They know which houses or what areas, what demographic, what zip codes, where to rent, where not to rent, where to fix and flip. And I just didn't do that in the beginning, right? And for a long time, I never knew that they were doing this little thing to where you can wholesale your deal to your flipping company, and then from there you can have a private money lender or hard money lender go ahead and lend you that money, so you're making money up front and then using that money to get into the deal, no money down.
Yeah.
So now what I've been doing is I've been basically wholesaling it to myself, maybe 10, 15,000, having my wholesaling company get paid out. And then if you have great resources, I end up getting a private money lender that lends me at 100%. So I'll make the $10,000 up front, and then I'm flipping it for zero money out of down using an Amex or Capital One or whatever credit card I'm using to just use the renovation as draws. So depending, on the situation, I'll go ahead and fix and flip it even after I wholesale wholesale it to myself.
So wait a second. So you're using credit cards to flip
Yeah,
your properties?
yeah. So
Wow, that's
so,
cool.
You know, basically growing up, right? I wasn't taught credit. Home ownership wasn't one of those things. We strive for it, but I didn't have home ownership around me. And these were all things that I focused and noticed that in America we have a problem with, right? So money management, obviously we're in debt a lot. And number two, it's one of those things that we don't really talk about it, but they want us to be in personal debt because that's how they get a hold of us, right? But if you understand financial literacy, you understand how to use their system in your behalf, you'll understand that you will never have more money than the bank. And as long as you show them that you're credible, reputable, you'll always be able to use their money to make an advantage. And that's how you really beat the game, is that you become the bank. So yeah, I mean, I'll leverage credit cards, such as liquidating credit cards to go ahead and get into a fix and flip, or maybe use it for marketing, or maybe even use it to fly.
Yeah, leverage your credit.
Yeah, 100%. So there's a lot of like assets out there. For example, if you're renting, you can use a credit card called Built, and with Built, they give you a routing and account number. And they actually incentivize you to pay on the first. And when you do, you actually get 1x to 2x times the points just for paying your rent. Yeah. And it's great because even as a landlord, but also as a tenant, you get incentivized, right? You could also use rentreporters.com, and that basically will help you with a trade line. It'll help you have a trade line because you're renting, you're spitting out good trade lines so that you can go ahead and start to build your credit. But also as a landlord, you want to encourage this because then you're getting paid on time, and it's helping you and it's helping them. So yeah, credit is really important. And I tell people all the time, hey, if you have $10,000 and the bank gives you $10,000, which $10,000 are you going to use to start your business? And of course, it's not going to be yours.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's a leverage. I mean, it's a very, very, it's powerful, man. When you know how to do it the right way, you don't get into over your head, and understanding how to maximize it, right? I think we have a stigma against debt altogether, but there's good debt and bad debt. I think
100%.
As somebody's getting into the area, or any area for that matter, distinguishing between the two is a very, very important thing. So, okay, walk us through the process. You started, 6.5 years ago.
Yeah.
What's your background before that?
Yeah, so, I mean, I wasn't the best at school. I did the bare minimum, C class student. And I was always very popular. I was that class clown. I was always that person that, hey, let's go here. And I would get everybody to go this way, right? Yeah. Which was just a gift of gab that I always had. But I met my dad when I was 16 years old. I was shared a bedroom with my grandmother to the age of 16. So if you'd come in my room, it would be straight religious Catholic stuff on one wall.
That's interesting.
And then the other wall would be like LeBron and all the stuff that I had. Wow. So yeah, it was pretty dope because me and my grandma share the same birthday.
So you guys are super close. So
we're super close. And then obviously having to share a bedroom with her, we became super close. And obviously being Hispanic, grandmas are like the holy grail, right? So. So anyways, it was just one of those cases where, once again, man, just didn't really have that male figure in my life. My mom was my dad, and my grandmother was like my mom, and just always was kind of like rebellious. Was always just trying to figure myself out and figure out what I wanted to do. Obviously tried out the whole thing of wanting to go to school, but after high school, I didn't want to do that. So I went and started to learn how to cut hair. So I was an apprentice at a barber shop. I used to clean and sweep the barber shop. I used to get them their lunch and do all that like a barbershop do-boy. Yeah. And I learned how to cut hair. And after that, I quickly understood that it wasn't really something that I wanted to do forever. And that's always been like my hack. I know you were talking about this earlier, was like that when you met me, I was really young. And I mean, thankfully, I'm still kind of young, right? But getting around older people is like one of the biggest hacks in life, because
totally.
The thing is, there's some things that can be taught, but some things can only be taught by life and experience. Yeah. And wisdom is what you gain when you're with somebody that's older than you, even if you're doing better than them. Yeah. I've come across people where, great, I'm winning at the facet of business and life, but in all reality, they have so much wisdom and so many mistakes that they've made that I get to learn from that. Yeah. So when I was at the barber shop, I quickly just looked around and just noticed that there's only 3 ways I can make more money, and it's either cut more hair, but then I'm spending less time with my family. Number
dollar
2,
in, dollar out. Yeah,
exactly. Number 2, charge
hour
more.
In, dollar out.
Yeah, charge more. But if I'm charging more, My competition is right next to me, so it's kind of hard for me to charge an extra $5. And then the last thing was, well, become an owner. But I don't know about you guys. When I was at my barbershop, or when I walked into any other barbershop, the owner was always working too.
Yeah.
So I quickly was like, you know what, this may not be the thing for me. And just like anybody else coming from an immigrant family, you know, we come to America and it's like, hey, go to college, get a degree, get married, buy a home, and die. So I said, you know what, let me go ahead and try that out. So I went to my local hospital, volunteered as a transporter. And after 4 months, I got hired for $9.50 an hour to go ahead and start transporting patients. So I used to transport.
So for 4 months, you worked for free?
4 months I worked for free. And it
most people don't do that. I think that says a lot about you as a person and what it takes to become successful.
Yeah, well, because, you know, the thing is that for you to get into like a hospital like that, you know, you have to have a degree. You know, you either like a CT, X-ray, or lab, phlebotomist or whatever. So doing those, you have to be recommended or you have to be sponsored or whatever. So I just wanted to show that I was a reliable person, which is unfortunately the horrible thing about corporate America is that, yeah, you learn a lot, but mostly what they want is a reliable person that's going to show up, right? So I ended up doing that, and it was great. But once again, I found out, right? So I was doing a couple things. I was working on the weekends as a barber. I was going to school, community college, Tuesday and Thursday, and then I was working at the hospital as a patient transporter, working 12-hour shifts, Monday and Wednesday.
That's work ethic right there.
Work, yeah. And I got it from my mom and grandma. You know, my mom worked multiple jobs. She had me young, 21, and my grandma worked at, you know, cleaning hotels. So, you know, I just got it from them. And I remember basically wanting to be a nurse. And once again, I looked at the nursing capacity of understanding how much they could make. And I was like, man, you know, there's people out here that make so much more money than nurses and doctors, but these people are so much more important. Why is it that a real estate investor makes more money than a doctor?
How'd you get exposed to the real estate side?
Well, it was mostly, so basically what happened, I was at Publix one day. My grandmother went to go ahead and buy something, the groceries, and it got declined. And the guy behind me basically bought our groceries. And I said, this will be the last time somebody dictates whether me and my family lives or eats. And I went and started Googling, like, what's the fastest way to make money? Like I said, I met my dad later on in my life, and he always did real estate. Never thought real estate was something I wanted to do. I obviously thought about, you know, just becoming a realtor or whatever. So I said, you know what I'm looking at here just isn't working. Let me just become a realtor. So I became a realtor, and I did that for a year. Never sold a house, never helped nobody sell a house or buy a house. It was just awful. It just wasn't for me.
So you're having difficulties as you're going through the process of this. You still want to get into real estate. What made it stick? I mean, usually people try it out, and I've seen it 1,000 times. I coach a lot of students throughout the country, but you know, okay, I gave it all I had, man. I really tried this thing, you know, for 2 weeks, making, I don't know, 10 calls a day. And then people lose the faith, right? And they just fizzle out. What was the the sticky factor for you?
How did you go from agent to
So basically what happened was I was showing this one prospect a house for like 3 months. And I showed her everything that she wanted to see. And at the end, she ended up not buying anything. She just was really picky. And when I actually did the commission split, I said, man, I would have made like $3,000. And I asked myself, how do I actually be the person that makes the decision? How do I be that person that no matter if it's a pink door and a lot or whatever it is, I'm the one that's ensuring that I get paid? And I just started looking into other avenues, and that's where real estate wholesaling came about. Because of the fact that since I'm representing myself, I can go ahead and make the decision of buying this property, obviously, aka going under contract. And when I'm selling the contract, obviously, I make the decision of who I want to sell to. And I mean, obviously, in the beginning, I just thought it was a scam. I'm like, how can you sell?
Most people do.
How can you sell something that you don't even own, right? But the great thing about it is that you do own something, and it's the equitable interest. That's what's allowing you to be able to sell the rights to that exclusive contract. So, of course, in the beginning, I didn't really understand it. But a lot of the times when your mind is shifting, right, you don't understand things that you've never been exposed to, right? And it goes back to that mindset. You know, when you're born, your mind is set to something that your parents have indoctrinated you. And you have to manually go in there and do that groundwork to get it to unset and to reset into something that you do understand. So, you know, once I started to understand how it actually worked, that's when I was like, you know what, I got to try this thing out.
Gotcha. And so at that point, then how is it that you actually got into the wholesaling business?
Yeah.
Did you start as a wholesaler, as a flipper, and then how did you get into that, and how did that evolve?
Yeah, so I mean, the goal was to fix and flip, right? Because you look at HGTV, you look at Netflix, you look at all these places, you're like, damn, I want to do that, right? They're like making so much money. Yeah. So I wanted to go ahead and do the wholesaling thing to get into fixing and flipping. So what I first started out doing was direct mail. So I would go to Office Depot. I would go ahead and get the thicker stock card, right, the thicker one. I would come back home. I would print it, print postcards. I would go back to Office Depot, have them cut it 4x6, I think it was, and then I would mail it out.
Oh, wow.
And it would suck sometimes because if the printer got jammed, then I would have to reprint. But anyways, that's how I was able to go ahead and get my first deal. And I made a huge mistake. So my first deal, I actually ended up getting a buyer, but I had him go under contract directly with the seller. And that was just because of the scarcity mindset that I had. You know, I still had that, well, what if I don't fill it out correctly? What if I put in the wrong thing? What if I don't find a buyer? Like, I don't want to be on the hook.
The fear, right?
The fear, right? False evidence appearing real. The fear of the unknown. So I was like, whatever, I'm going to let you do it. And it was 2 months. It was a $10K assignment fee. It took him 2 months to pay me that $10K. But after that, I learned my contract in and out, and I told myself I will never, ever let that happen again. So my true first deal, I got it from a tax delinquent list. I used to go to the county, pull it directly, and did the same exact thing. And I started to send out mailers. And at that time, I had an Infinity, and half of it was, basically it was a black car, but the clear coat was missing on one side. And I remember driving up to the house, and they were coming out, they were talking to each other, and I quickly did a U-turn so that the good side of my car would be seen. And I'm over there buying this house, for $80K. I have $800 in my bank account, and I'm just over here praying and hoping that obviously they take it. So yeah, I made $10K. Somebody helped me find a buyer. I paid him the $1,500, and that after that it was sealed.
Isn't it crazy, man, how opportunity seems like it dissipates and it goes away, but and you can feel crushed, right? Like, for example, this guy, when you came in and there's you didn't get paid at the time you thought you were going to get paid, and it took, dragged out for longer. There's so many positive outlooks to just sticking with it. It's one of the biggest things, man. Sustaining a path. If you pick a route, give it enough time for it to work. Yeah. Right. You're gonna start finding that the clicks do come along.
Yeah. 100%.
So it's interesting that you found those deals. Kicking it off with direct mail, right? And started. How did you? At that point, usually what I see, the regular path is somebody gets into it, they start cold calling, and during the cold calling, they understand the conversation, the negotiation, kind of grow into it. When those leads started coming in and you started working the leads from a direct mail campaign, how did you know how to work it? How did you know how to have that conversation? How did it go? Was it perfect? Was it right?
Well, then also too, how long did it take you to get your first deal?
Man, so I was one of my quotes and one of my clothing brand and stuff that I stand by is called "Sponsored by God." So I don't know. I was sponsored by God. I think it was 28 days, 27 days.
Really, that's really good.
Yeah, and it was a while ago.
Most people take 6, 7, 8 months.
Yeah, exactly. So it just ended up lining up correctly for me. And what I used was a blind card, which actually, if you look at our text, is what I sent you.
Gotcha.
And a blind postcard, essentially is basically where you don't put a lot of information. It's just hey, I have some important information about your property. Please give me a call back at this. And the key thing to doing that is you want to send it to a list that is already being tackled by the city or the municipality, right? So a tax delinquent, a code violations, because they already know that they owe somebody money.
Yeah.
So when you send them something like that, it looks like it's coming from the city already, and really it's coming from us.
Yeah.
So then you're more inclined to go ahead and get that person to call you back. And I was using CallRail. I was using an IVR, which is, it's when you call somebody, you press 1, for this, or press 2, and that's how I was able to do it. But I was actually still working, and I was still juggling multiple jobs while I was doing this. So one of the key things was systems, right? And was my CRM. I was like, man, this entrepreneurship is difficult. I thought becoming an entrepreneur, you'd work less than obviously working a 9 to 5, but you were working more because I was a solopreneur.
You work more, you get paid less.
So and you get paid less, right? Yeah. So the biggest thing was, how do I duplicate myself? How do I automate this so that while I'm at work, I can still be able to go ahead and do this? And that's where a CRM really, really helped me out. And that's how I was able to go ahead and understand, how many times I followed up, how many times I did this, and how many times I did that.
So you were very organized.
Well, and afterwards, I made a lot of mistakes, and the biggest mistakes that I made was, number one, I didn't double down as much, right?
Yeah.
I should have doubled down more. And that just comes down.
I think we all do that.
Yeah, and that
Yeah.
comes back from
Yeah.
the scarcity mindset. You know,
Yeah.
having the fear of, wow, I have this amount of money.
Yeah.
If I lose it all, I'm back at square one,
Yeah.
right? So let me just. But the worst thing is that you're going to spend the money anyways.
Yeah.
So you might as well spend it on obviously reinvesting.
Yeah.
Number two was I did the shotgun approach, which I'm pretty sure a lot of us do. I didn't know how I got the deal. I didn't know what list I used. I didn't know what skip tracing provider I used. I didn't know any of that. All I
You were
knew
tracking, yeah.
yeah. So that's what a CRM allowed me to do, is that it allowed me to start to understand that over time.
Yeah.
But I would say like my first 6 to 8 months, I wasn't doing any of that, but I was closing deals for sure.
Well, I think I was going to touch on that because most people, you know, they take, you know, Nick Perry that does, you know, $500,000 a month now in deals. I think he said it took him 9 months to get a deal.
yeah. Shout out to my boy Nick too.
Yeah, exactly. Carlos Reyes, it took him 9 months, 8 months as well. You had 28 days, but one thing I noticed, you're a really good communicator.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like you're really good at speaking. I think that's a huge thing that everyone can pick up on.
Yeah.
The better you can communicate, the more likely you are to get deals.
So what I would say, and I appreciate the
flowers.
The flowers. But what I would say, man, is that I learned that from the barbershop, and I learned that from working at the hospital. And here's why. At the barbershop, most men, I mean, they come obviously to get a haircut, but it's also their safe space. It's also that space away from their wife, away from their family. And it's like that man time. And what I noticed is that they just want to talk about something that's not going on, not work, not family. It's sports, it's whatever. And I would just sit there and listen. And that's how I became a good communicator. Second thing was I learned empathy at the hospital.
Yeah.
You know, there's so many people that unfortunately that end up at the hospital that don't have people that visit them. And getting somebody a blanket or asking them how they're doing or how how things going, that really helped me, and it translated over into real estate because now I learned empathy. You know, and that's why when I hire people now, I like to hire people from Chick-fil-A. I like to hire people that really lead with empathy and not just sales.
Yeah.
Because with our business, we're really trying to find the desire state. What are they looking to accomplish? What is their real true problem? So yeah, communication kind of transpired over into that from my previous jobs.
You know, it's interesting you say that. I think social awareness, right, kicks in, but then we have that the humanness that we all, you know, strive for when it comes to communicating and having a connection with somebody else. The person on the other side of the phone or the other side of the table, like that's exactly what they're looking for. We're in a relationship business at the end of the day.
100%. We're
transacting in houses and contracts and assignments and all that stuff, right?
Yes.
But the relationship is really what's key in all this.
Yeah.
I hired two of my top guys in the business are former firefighters. We used to be firefighters together. So from back in the day, but again, you have that human buy-in, right?
That
you have
empathy,
the empathy, the social awareness is there, the understanding is there because it's genuine. It's not something that's strategic. When somebody's communicating or trying to build or connect, or okay, how do I find the empathy here? And then they take it from this strategic, you know, aspect. You're able to tell, dude.
Yeah,
you can tell.
Totally.
Yeah.
No, you have to connect with people.
Yeah.
That's a huge part of. You meet a lot of people that just I met one guy once. He was doing it for a year and a half. I haven't got a deal, but he couldn't connect with people. Like he was shy. He was too introverted. He couldn't connect with people. And like if you want to get into the business, find a friend that is good at that.
Yeah.
Because that's a necessity. Like, you're not going to make it if you don't have that.
Yeah. And this is why a product that you'll never go broke from is intellectual property.
Yeah.
And as long as you always reinvest into the 6 inches between your ears, you'll start to understand that the most important business is you. Yeah. Right? Like Jay-Z has made more money from his brand than his records.
Yeah.
LeBron has made more money from his brand than his records, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of the biggest things is, like you said, is understanding how to communicate with people, and that's a big thing that a lot of us, you know, I don't know what the biggest fear is, but I know one of them is public speaking and
correct.
talking.
Yeah.
And marketing, you have to understand that when you go to corporate America, you're marketing yourself because you have something what's called a resume. And when you sit in front of that employer, what you're doing is you're selling yourself to say, hey, listen, I'm a good candidate.
Yeah.
And that's what we do in sales. There's many of us that do the 70% BS rule that go ahead and say we'll buy as is in 30 days and blah, 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 blah. But the reason why we're able to get a better deal or the faster deal or get to connect with that person is because we're providing true value. They connect with us.
Yeah.
And they say, you know what? I'm willing to do business with you over the next guy because I like you.
Authenticity, man.
Authenticity. And another thing is I don't convince anybody of anything.
Yeah.
Like with wholesaling real estate, what I see a lot of people is kind of like blind dating, right? Yeah. You sit there and let's just say your pet peeve is maybe a woman that smokes cigarettes. I don't know. And you sit there and she lights up a cigarette. Would you not want to go ahead and hit that bell and move on? What's the point? You'll never go ahead and take that anywhere else. And in the beginning, what I used to do is I used to sit on the phone with somebody knowing that they weren't my seller avatar. And a lot of the times I see so many new people make the same mistake, staying on the phone knowing that this person is not the right person for you.
Yeah.
Knowing that maybe, understanding that maybe this person is you have to get them a little bit different, right? There's more sentimental value there than there is logistical value. And how do I take them from sentimental to logistical to understand that they do have a problem, and instead of convincing them, right, persuading them, because it's all intention.
Yeah.
Well, I think, yeah, absolutely. And I think it's also the awareness, right? A lot of times people don't understand the hot water they're in given the, depending on the situation. The people that deal with us, man, is because they have bigger issues. They have big problems.
Of course.
The house itself is not the problem. What the issue is the neglect. It's the financial distress. Is there a relationship that's broken? Is a divorce that's happening? It's something else. The collateral damage is a property, right?
Yeah.
So
it's a byproduct. Yeah, it's the byproduct.
Yeah, it's a byproduct. And it's that's really where we come in. We're solving a problem, which in the end, it's not the property itself, it's everything that's behind that. And if we're not able to understand that and read between the lines as we're having these conversations, man, all kinds of opportunity gets missed. Mm-hmm. And we're not able to perform at our best either, because we're not seeing things through those eyes.
Yeah.
And you see people all the time and wholesalers that go out there and they're just like, I'm all in for the offer. Like, this is the offer, this is the where we're at, and it's a cash transaction, right?
Yeah. It has to be an emotional connection with that seller, 100%.
Right. Yeah.
So let me ask you a question. How did you start to scale? Like, what were the steps to get you to where you're at now?
Great question. So the coolest thing, man, that ended up happening for me was, like I said, when I first started out, was tax delinquent list and code violations. And back in the day, we used to use TLO, get like 17 cents, 18 cents to skip a record. But one day what I was doing is I would basically print out the code violation list, and I ended up really building a lot of rapport with my mailman. And I ended up building rapport with him, ended up being cool with him, and one day from the next, he didn't come back anymore. And I was like, damn. And I started to think to myself, well, you know what? How do I end up finding more distressed properties at a faster rate while I'm working my job? And the coolest thing about it was that I was able to go ahead and basically write a sticky note in my mailbox, and I was able to go ahead and work with my mailman to go ahead and start bringing me these distressed properties, right? And what a lot of people don't know is that a mailman actually has like between 100 to 200 stops per day, and they deliver up to 1,000 pieces of mail. But the greatest thing about them is that they already know where all the vacant properties are. They already know who's going through divorce. They know who went to the nursing home. They know who's getting pre-foreclosed on, or all the situations. So essentially, I started to recruit all these mailmen and started to do basically have them drive for dollars for me.
Wow, that's an interesting strategy.
And the reason I did that was because direct mail was becoming just so expensive.
Yeah.
And as you have this, this system here and that system here, and it adds up every single month, and then you're maybe not getting a deal here and there, right? So I was like, how do I get somebody to pay them without having to pay them up front, right? Doing something that they're already doing, because they're getting paid by the city to do it.
Yeah.
And that's how I was able to go direct to seller, and also without the delay of having to buy data from these third-party companies, because obviously it takes time.
Yeah. No, 100%. That's super interesting.
Yeah.
Where are you at right now in terms of deals on average? How many transactions are you guys?
So right now, one of the greatest things that I've should have did a long time ago is that we actually do around 5 to 7 deals, but about 60% of our deals are actually listings. And we have what's called the opportunity pipeline, right? And this is something that I want to really, really stress to everybody, is that you can't you can't just be a one-trick pony, right? When it comes down to an acquisition company and wholesaling, you have to really be diverse with trying to solve problems.
Yeah.
And it could be with novations. It could be with subject to or maybe Airbnb arbitration, or it could be with fixing and flipping and leveraging resources. So what we've been able to do is that we'll go ahead and make the wholesale offer. And then I also have a broker and an agent that work on my team. And if we can't get the wholesale, we'll list it. So we'll come in as a third party, as not even a random company that don't even know each other. And we'll go ahead and just say, yeah, this person's hot, get that listing. So now we're able to get, between 2 to 4 listings per month. And then we have maybe 2 to 3 bangers of wholesale deals between, 20 to 40, 50K.
Gotcha.
Nice.
So are those like novations or is it actual listings?
Actual real estate listings.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah.
That's great.
So it's just creating partnerships because you have to think about it. If somebody says, hey, Rafael, I want to sell, but I don't fit this 70% rule, or I don't fit this wholesaling rule, I don't fit this fix and flipping rule, or, it doesn't have enough equity for cash flow, they don't want to do for sale by owner, why not list the property if they want to sell? It's horrible, right? So I've left so much money because of the opportunity pipeline that we've now created. So we'll go from like creative to listing to wholesale or taking it down, whatever it is. If you want to sell, we're finding a solution for that.
Yeah, we do something similar. I have different tiers as we're presenting the offer. We started with wholesale, then we'll pivot to creative. Then we'll do. We used to do options. We kind of just pulled back from that because we were locking them too high. It did give us shots at closing deals, but at the end of the day, like most of those fell through, and realized it was busy, not the highest and best busy work. So did away with those. But I'm a real estate broker, so my agents, I would take the listings, 100%. They would pursue the listings, and then me as a broker, I get a cut. I get a referral fee.
Yeah.
So it works well. You turn that into marketing dollars, and then just keep the
and just some food for thought, right? There's also a huge gap between realtors and listings and all in between. So if you run an acquisition company, let's just say you don't have to give to be a broker or JV with an agent to list. You can just sell them the leads.
Yeah.
And you can sell the leads between $50 to $100 because you're not able to go ahead and come through. And then, depending on how you structure, you can get a referral, you can get whatever it is, however you want to do it, as long as it's obviously legal and you're following the agent's rules or the broker rules. There's a lot of money to be put out there, right? Yeah. So I have a couple Airbnb arbitrations, and I learned a lot of this stuff just throughout the way of leaving money on the table.
Yeah.
But by being just a one-trick pony.
Yeah, when I got a property, if I can't do a wholesale and I can't purchase it, or I can't do a novation, I'll get the listing, I'll send it to an agent and we'll 50-50 split.
Yeah.
And like, well, hey, it's my deal. I'm going to help you get it.
Yeah.
It's a free lead. You're going to make money on it. They're like, okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
And all they're doing is putting some pictures, listing on the MLS and doing one open house. We just had a property, a deal that sold. And what I ended up doing is I got it under contract at $225. I wholesaled it to my flipping company for $235. Called the private money lender. She gives me 100%. And I basically got into the deal $10,000 up. And like I said, I used the credit card to go ahead and pull the draws out on the renovation. So I basically flipped that house, no money out of pocket.
Wow, that's great. That's really great.
Yeah.
So let me ask you a question on the mindset side. What do you think got you to where you're at, and what advice do you give to people that are wanting to do what you've done? Like, what do you need mindset wise to make it happen?
Well, I'll tell you this, right? One thing I've learned is that your parents dictate your history, but your mentors dictate your future.
That's a really good quote.
And you have to make sure that you surround yourself by people that you would trade a day in a life with them. Also understand that you have to be a student. You don't know it all, right? And you can learn from even a person that's homeless on how to not be homeless.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? I say this other quote as well, which is, imagine if Martin Luther King had a dream but never acted on that dream.
Yeah.
So you can't take excuses to the bank. So what I would say, the keys to success is, number one, understand that people aren't here to save you. What car do you drive?
Range Rover.
Range Rover. What do you drive?
A Benz.
Benz. When you guys bought your cars, were you allowed to leave without car insurance?
No.
But they let you leave the hospital without life insurance.
Yeah.
That goes to show that nobody's here to save us.
Yeah.
Right? Life.
Yeah, I like that. I hadn't thought of that. Yeah.
Right? So you have to understand that America wants you to save your way to wealth, but it's nearly impossible. because life happens. I remember the most money that I saved was like maybe $5K, and as soon as I did that, my tire went out, this happened, that happened, and I'm like, damn, I'm back to $2,500, right?
Yeah.
So the goal isn't to save more money, but the goal is to make more money. And the only way you can make more money is actually by investing in a skill set that has an unlimited earning capacity, right? And you start to understand that you can make a lot more money faster than you can save it, right? My first check was $8,500, and like it was like they signed. 2 weeks later, it was like they closed, and I'm like, damn, $8,500. Then afterwards, you start to understand if you really break it down, right? Most of the times you're doing busy work. You're not having income producing activities, right? And that's a lot of the things that you have to focus on is really, am I making money, and what am I spending my time on? So delayed gratification, understanding that people will help you spend money but not help you make money, and that you have to have a selfish moment in your life, right? As an entrepreneur, we've all had a selfish term in our life where you said, you know what, if it ain't me, then who? Who else is going to go ahead and do this? Who's going to have that house where you can do the baby showers, where you can have the pool? Who's going to teach credit? Who's going to teach home ownership? With my family, I did it a couple of years. We're falling off, but on Thanksgiving, we try to go ahead and do a potluck of where we'll invest $100, $200 to help somebody get something. Maybe we'll repair your credit. Maybe we'll help you with your, you want to buy a home. Well, let's give it to them so that they can qualify for FHA. So you have to uplift the people as well around you.
Yeah.
And you have to be that leader. Leadership is very important.
I love it, man.
Well said. That's really good advice.
Yeah.
What's on the docket for you? I mean, right now, you are wholesaling. You're right in the middle of real estate. You're 31 years old. You have you have history now, which is solid, right? You have a track record. But what's on the horizon for you?
Man, my mentor told me this literally a couple of days ago, and I asked him. I said, "Man, like, why do you want to make more money? Like, what's the point? You already have so much money. Like, what's the point?" And he tells me, he says, "Brandon, listen, peace, love, sadness, lust is all temporary, but fulfillment lasts forever."
Yeah.
And fulfillment for me is just the gift of seeing people have that feeling that I had when I first closed my deal.
Yeah.
And the fortunate thing for me is the more people that I help do that, it comes back. It's the law of reciprocity, right? It's in abundance. So I help people make money, and even if I don't make money with you, God sends me some other opportunity to make money, whether it's through real estate or helping somebody else. So what I'm chasing right now is fulfillment. And I'm just trying to go ahead and build a good portfolio of assets and businesses for me and my lifestyle, my family, because I don't truly believe that generational wealth should be left to your kids.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to leave my kids any businesses, any cash or anything like that. Maybe cash, stuff like that, and they have to be 18 or 21 or whatever in increments. Because why? I've seen so many people that I've gotten properties for 40, 50 cents on the dollar that inherited a house through probate, where their home, their dad, their mom worked their ass off,
and they give
then they give it away.
Yep.
So generational wealth for me is transferred to intellectual property.
Yeah.
So that's why I want to be able to go ahead and teach other people how to be smart with their money, how to invest their money, and how to really understand real estate and how to use wholesaling as the barrier to entry. Because I don't think that wholesaling is your last stop, right? It's not a sellable business. It's not something that you can exit. But the great thing is that you can learn how to truly invest into real estate through real estate wholesaling, and you can use it as a huge leverage.
Yeah.
Because I'll break it to you guys, right? That whole buying a duplex, renting out the other half for $300 a month, it's not going to make your wife happier. It's not going to let you quit your job, and you're not going to be able to vacation in Orlando at Disney World. Now, the great thing about real estate is that you can use it for wealth preservation, right, instead of the bank, and tax advantages. That's what they don't tell you, is that we don't really buy real estate for the cash flow. It's really to go ahead and hide our money, right? But the great thing about it is that once you understand how to use real estate to your advantage, you can really, really start to get wealthy.
Yeah, 100%. And I think we all start as wholesalers, but eventually you want to see yourself as an investor.
Yeah.
And you just have different, you can wholesale it, you can wholesale it, you can do an ovation, you can do a fix and flip.
But most times it's because the tax bill is crazy.
Yeah.
Right? You do $1 million in assignment fees, you're going to get hit.
Yeah.
And if you didn't buy any properties, well, you're going to start to understand, okay, I made money, but how do I keep my money?
Yeah. Exactly.
Right? And that's why you want to become an investor, because I'll tell it to you. I mean, I was just on another pod, and he said it, man. Listen, you make a lot of money wholesaling, but when you start fixing and flipping, you lose money, you lose time.
Yeah.
And to be honest, if your margins aren't great, it's gonna be a waste of time.
Yeah. I only flip if it's a huge spread.
Yeah.
Even if it's on the same, kind of related field, right? You still have to know your niche. You have to just understand it before you jump into it. Don't get sidetracked by all the shiny objects and the shiny lights.
Yep.
People crushing it. I mean, we had a previous podcast as well, and doing really well. The most successful people in this space, in any space actually, understand their niche. They understand their wheelhouse, and they have extreme clarity over that. What that is. Okay, I understand this, and this. You were using the analogy of the recipe, right? This is the recipe for what I know how to do. This is the recipe for the meal that I love to eat, and this is the recipe. Anything outside of that, I understand it's risk. So you just categorize it as a different thing, right? Now it's risk. It's something else that I can play with until I get good at it. But I don't let go of the stuff that's working, right? And you don't stop the momentum and the activity and the action and the stuff that's actually feeding you and giving you the results on a daily basis.
That's what I was telling Rafael. I told him that when we had our call 6 years ago, you told me it's like baking a cake. It's a recipe.
I remember that.
Remember
I
that?
remember that everybody knows how to bake a cake. We take sugar, flour, milk, and some temperature and some frosting. But we don't know how long to keep it in there. We don't know how much sugar. We don't know how much milk or whatever the case may be. And until you find that recipe, it's not going to hit for you.
Yeah.
And you have to understand that your timing and God's timing is very different.
Yeah.
Everybody's time comes at a different time. And you have to align yourself in a way that makes sense, because power, success, money is given to you at a point in time where God truly feels like you're ready for it. Because in the wrong hands, it can be detrimental.
Yeah.
It can be detrimental, So, and I love what you were saying about the recipe, because it's one of those things that you have to start to understand that what am I doing wrong, and that's what comes down to KPIs, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I really started to understand. How many touches, right? How do I dissect? Why isn't this working again? Because building a predictable business is the best thing in the world. Right? When I can be here, we can be here on a podcast, knowing that the system is working for us. That's what's important.
Yeah.
I can just go on the computer and understand, okay, listen, obviously our contact, response rate, however you want to call it, isn't hitting here, right? Or, hey, listen, let me go ahead and do some more training with my people, because I can tell that they aren't building enough rapport, right? Or they're not doing this piece of the process, because I don't believe in a script. But, it's different things that you can go in there and tweak it like a mechanic, and you can say, I know it's this part.
Yeah.
You have to be very aware.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. A lot of the times people want to go ahead and take their side hustle and make it their main job, but then they still treat it like a side hustle.
Yeah.
Big no.
Big no. Yeah.
No, man. You have to get disciplined with it. It's not a complicated thing to do, but it's not easy. Don't get confused.
100%. And I see that all the time.
Yeah.
You make a 20K pop and you hire 3 VAs, but the VAs are running themselves because you're not leading them and you're not telling them what to do. And the thing is that you have to be the janitor of your business. You have to be the salesman of your business. You have to be the CEO of your business. In the beginning, I do believe you have to be all seats.
Absolutely.
So that you can understand how to go ahead and be in that position that they're in and lead them through that, right? Like when I hire people, most of the times I use online jobs, PH or Indeed or whatever the case may be. And a lot of the times I'll leave, the whole description there. But at the bottom, I will say, listen, I want you to go ahead and fill out this Google Drive form and submit it to me. And it's just a bunch of nothing. It's just what books you like to read. Do you like to do this? Do you like to do that? Because at the end, I want to see if you know how to pay attention and follow directions.
Yeah.
I can teach you everything about real estate. But what we're looking for is somebody that knows how to follow directions and pay attention. And most people, what they do is they copy and paste their resume and then just go on to the next one.
Yeah.
Right? And that's not the person that I want working for me. I want people to understand the little details, because when we're solving problems, like he said, it's
details
reading
matter.
between the lines.
Yeah.
Right? So that's what I've learned when it comes down to hiring people, which is very, very important. You can't do this business on your own. You can't do any business on your own.
Yeah.
I don't believe that anybody is self-made.
Yeah.
Now, can I say, I got myself there mentally self? Yes. But you need people to be able to go ahead and make money. And it's great helping other people.
Yeah. You got to delegate to elevate.
Oh, yeah, I love that. That was bars. But yeah, you do. You do have to delegate to elevate. 100%.
Love it, man. Dude, I mean, it seems like you're doing a lot of good stuff. I mean, you're humming right now. You have a clear direction of where you're headed. I love the fact that you have a grip on what's ahead, and that it's wrapped around the idea of fulfillment, right? When you know, when you have a notion of what that is, the awareness of what you want in your life, in this case, fulfillment, you're able to dial everything else in. I think everything else just becomes a piece of that puzzle, right? But now you have the entire picture that you can start putting together, really, and take off. So big kudos on that.
I appreciate that, man. And you know what? I want to be transparent on here. I think for me too, past couple years, 5 years, 6 years, it's just been work. And there comes a time where you do get exhausted.
Yeah.
There comes a time where you have to tell yourself, man, I got to sit back and smell the flowers, because the Bible says to not overindulge, but our addiction and our overindulgence is success.
The next deal.
It's the next deal. When I made X amount, I wanted more, and when I made more, and then now it just comes to a point where it's not enough. So you really have to understand your why. Your why is what hurts you, right? WHY. And fulfillment is so important, because you do have to sit back and say, you know what, give yourself a pat on the back, hug yourself and say, Jesus loves you, and you've done great, right? Another thing that my mentor told me, he said, Brandon, listen, I know you're always chasing that that next zero, but you having $1 million at 31 versus having $10 million at 61 is not going to hit the same.
Yeah.
Because you're not in your prime. You're not going to feel the same. You're not going to look the same. You're not going to. So enjoy it now.
Yeah.
Even though, of course, you want to be tenacious. You want to be out there chasing that money. Great. But sit back and also enjoy your family.
Yeah.
Enjoy what God has given you, and just keep striving and just keep learning.
But also, too, you mentioned it more than once, and that's how we met, through the same mentor, Carlos Reyes, right?
Yeah.
But
Shout out to Los.
Yeah, for sure. But you mentioned mentors.
Yeah.
Clearly, because you mentioned it more than once.
Yeah, you have to.
It's super important.
You have to.
Yeah,
you have to, because you have to understand something, that a mentor is there to give you clarity where there is uncertainty, and also to show you the correct way.
Yeah.
And once again, in unknown waters and murky waters that you've never been there, it's very important for you to be able to bypass that.
Yeah.
Like I mentioned before, the average person lives to 80, and after the age of 40, you have more past and future. So how do I buy back time, right? Andrew Tate said this. He said that he actually uses his money to buy other people's time.
Yeah.
Right?
It's smart.
And that's what's important, right? If I can be here with you guys and learn one piece that will help me with my business, it'll go crazy. And I've talked about this before, but I'll share this with you guys, right? When I first came to see my mentor here in Phoenix, a long time ago, 2019, late 2018, I remember sitting there, and I paid $15,000. It was 3 days. And the whole time they're talking, and I'm like, damn, I'm doing all of this. I shouldn't have done this, right? Yeah. On the third day, they talk about dispositions, and they give me a gem. And I'm like, I'm going to try that.
Yeah.
I was able to go ahead and hit my first 6-figure month just because of that, because I was able to go ahead and get a bigger assignment fee per deal on just one thing.
Yeah.
So out of all those 3 days, I was doing everything the same way they were doing it.
Yeah.
But at the end, I tried one thing that elevated me and made it all worth it.
Yeah.
And I still do that to this day.
That's usually the way it works out.
And exactly. So that's why you have to make sure that you're investing in yourself, because everything can be stripped except for what you learned.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, man. You got to find a way to put yourself in those tables, too, and surround yourself with knowledge, man. Borrow experience. Buy experience if you have to, right? But we don't have to go through the pains and struggles. We can think who, not how. Who has the experience that I need now? How can I, get to X amount by myself? There's a lot of help out there. There's a lot of people that want to, collaborate. You collaborated on your first sale of your wholesale deal.
Yeah.
You JV'd with somebody else, and
100%.
You use their buyer, right?
Yeah.
So there's always ways to come in and then and tweak and make that journey, right, more malleable, I guess.
Yeah. But you have to lead with value as well, right?
100%.
You have to.
100%.
There's so many people out there. You get what you deserve. And a lot of the times, there's so many people out there that come to me and say, hey, Brandon, I have a deal for you. I can't find a buyer. Well, something's only worth what somebody else is willing to pay for it. And the reason why you're not finding a buyer is because it's not an actual deal.
Yeah.
You have to go out there and literally find out what's your avatar, which is your buyer, and then it's a deal. But until then, it's not a deal, right?
Yeah.
So you have to lead with value, and it's more so how can I do this. And I went through the whole thing. I used to DM, people when I first got started. Hey, man, can I work for you for free? You could take my first 85 deals and you can have them. I just want to learn.
Imagine if you did that, right?
Yeah, it'd be crazy, right?
That's
a 360, a 360 deal, right? Contract, right? But you have to understand that you have to lead with value, right? A lot of people that are making money, a lot of people that are successful, in all reality, we want more time. And if we have to give up our time to help you.
I mean, it
exactly,
absolutely is.
Exactly. So that's the biggest thing about it is how do you lead with value? How do you provide a solution for even that person that you're trying to JV with or network with, whatever the case may be, So it's very, very important.
Yeah.
I love it, man. Before we sign off, do you have anything else you want to cover? I do have one more question.
I would just like to know, what do you think are the two biggest keys to your success? You touched on it, but thinking about it, what do you think? Like, man, these are the two things that really got me to where I'm at.
Oh man, that's a good question. I think maybe number one is going to be self-awareness. Self-awareness, understanding that everything is your fault, even when you think it's not your fault.
Yeah. And
understanding that the only person that can get yourself out of that situation is you.
Yeah.
Your mind, you have about, I think it's 1,000 thoughts that go through your head subconsciously every single day. Right now we're talking, but we're thinking about something else.
Yeah.
Right? And that's how crazy our bodies is, right? And it's your own mind that will talk you out of something great. So you have to be very self-aware, right, of what is it that you truly want to do. I read this book every single year. It's called Outwitting the Devil.
So good.
And basically what that book is by Napoleon Hill is that it states that if you're a drifter, you're under the control of the devil. And what that is a drifter is actually a person that is undecisive, a person that doesn't know how to make a decision, right? Like, hey, babe, what do you want to eat tonight? Whatever you want to eat. Okay, let's have tacos. I don't want tacos, right? That's the prime example.
Yeah.
I meet people, hey, what do you do? Oh, I do X, Y, Z, but I don't like my job. Well, what do you want to do? I don't know. What are you good at?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Where do you want to go? I don't know, right? So being self-aware, having clarity of where you are right now, where you're trying to go, and how do you get there, I think just a plan is what helped me out.
So that also takes accountability.
100%. And number two is delayed gratification.
It's funny, Zach, guy, he owns 250 properties. We had him on as well. He said the exact same thing.
Delayed gratification. I know you guys see me on here with Louis Vuitton, Rolex, whatever. Yeah. Guys, listen, I've been in this business for 5.5 years. I remember going to work, still working at the barber shop, right, on the weekends to make $400 a weekend, and I had over 6 figures in my bank account. Yeah. Still driving that Infinity, right, because of the fact that I didn't know that at any point in time I could go back. Right? I could still be working 2 jobs trying to figure it out. Yeah. So delayed gratification is going to be the key. So I would say self-awareness. Yeah. Because let's be honest. It's
funny you mentioned delayed gratification because that's a $40K Rolex.
Yeah, for sure. But here's the thing too is that
it paid off.
Yeah, well, you have to pat yourself on the back. And you also have to understand marketing, right? Unfortunately, I'm a big marketing person. Obviously I teach other people and I want my content to be out there. Yeah. So I'm competing with girls twerking on the internet and guys driving Ferraris. So when I come up here and talk about real estate and how you can flip a contract or how you can take over a monthly mortgage payment without having to buy the house, to some people it's boring. So I have to grasp their attention. Yeah. Right? So it's marketing at one point, So I would say the 2 things that has helped me is number 1, and I'll say 3. So number 1 is self-awareness. Number 2, delayed gratification. And number 3 is a business partner. And it's the business partner that everybody has. God.
I like that.
Yeah.
I love it, man.
Yeah.
Dude, great conversation, man. I love the speed at which you're moving, and everything you've been able to accomplish, man, so far. So excited to see what's coming. If somebody wants to get a hold of you, reach out, maybe collaborate with you or whatnot, where's the best place to find you?
At this current moment, it's Instagram. Blue Notes Brandon is my Instagram. YouTube is also Blue Notes Brandon. My Facebook is Brandon Narain. And yeah, you could just reach out to me through there. Just reach out, let me know that you saw me on REI Big Shots with these cool guys, and however I can help, I'll definitely go ahead and help.
That's awesome.
Beautiful. Vic? Love it. No, that's it. I know you had one final question, I think.
Yeah.
So if you were walking down the street and you ran into your 17-year-old self, what piece of advice would you give that kid?
Understand that your past trauma doesn't make your future self.
Love it.
That's awesome.
Because a lot of the times, man, you know, we hold on to things too long. You know, we hold on to the fact that we didn't have our dad in our life, or we were poor, you know, we were born broke, or, you know, we don't have the opportunities of somebody else, or, you know what, I'm never going to make it out because I don't have anybody that can show me, or whatever, these excuses that we make up that are unfortunately just bullshit. Right? And what I can tell you is that there's a bunch of people that have made it and have been in worse situations. If you go to the hospital, most of the people there are immigrants. You know, they're Asians, Indians, Africans, right? You look at our construction, America, how beautiful it is mostly built from Hispanics, right? So guys, I would say do not let your past trauma hold you back from the future self. And that's what I would tell myself.
I think one thing that just keeps sticking in my head is what you said earlier. Your family dictates your history.
Yeah, your parents dictated your history, but your mentors would dictate your future.
I love that. I think
I
think we should leave it at that, because that's a critical.
I'm gonna throw the mic.
That's a critical bit of advice that people overlook.
100%.
I love it, man. Great having you on the show,
Appreciate
bro.
you
Thanks
guys.
so much for
Thank
stopping
you.
by.
Thank you,
brother.
guys. Thank you
Appreciate
guys so
it.
much. Appreciate you.
Fam, there you guys have it. Make sure you subscribe, like, and share. Follow my boy here, and we'll catch you guys on the next one. Stay focused. You got this.
See you guys.